Hey guys, I'm Brenda Nicole and welcome back to my channel. It was not my intention to take such a prolonged break, but you know what, here we are. And thanks to the excess of content that there is on the internet, I've been focusing more on quality over quantity, more on the quality that I have when making the content rather than the quality of the content. There's so much of it that it's not like we really need my input on anything. I'd rather just have fun doing it. So yeah. Also, this beauty came in yesterday and wow, you can really see her on camera. She is out on display, but we're gonna move past that. So we have officially finished wedding season for this year, and as I'm on the countdown to my 27th birthday, I thought today's video essay would be the perfect topic. Church bells ringing, birds chirping, and a movie that for the longest time I had a love-hate relationship to, and that is My Best Friend's Wedding. Before we really begin the deep dive into this film, I want to clear a few things up. First of all, I understand moral relativism, and this movie is considered vintage, even though it came out the year that I was born. This movie still has a cultural impact today, and I think the points that I'm going to make are just as relevant today or 26 years ago when this film first came out. Second of all, just because the themes of this movie aren't morally perfect by today's standards does not mean that I dislike this movie. Even watching it through the lens of the observations that I'm going to make, I really like it. Just because I hate the villain of the story doesn't make it a bad movie. In fact, it makes them a great villain. And hey, maybe I'll change my mind about this in the future, but for now, I feel pretty confident about it. With that being said, let's begin with the plot. I firstly want to appreciate a beautiful scene that really sets the tone of the movie. Before we even begin, there's this mini music video of this bride and her bridesmaids lip syncing to Wishin' and Hoping by Dusty Springfield, and it really doesn't add much to the storyline, but it is a very unique touch. It gives it character and it sets the tone of the movie very well. My Best Friend's Wedding is a movie about a girl named Julianne who has a male best friend named Michael O'Neill. Julianne is a busy working woman. She is a big-time food critic, and her other best friend is George, but he's fruity. Michael and Jules met at Brown, and she describes their relationship then as one hot month, whatever that means, and then she dumps him. But he gives her puppy eyes and apparently says that she's his best friend and he doesn't want to lose her. And she agrees, so they remain friends. It is important to note that she rejected him, but they remained friends because he asked her to do so. She then goes on to say that they've been close ever since and have really enjoyed their friendship because they've been there for each other through all of their ups and downs. Then, one day, on their many wild adventures, he cuts his finger, and then he proceeds to cut hers and makes her promise that if they're not married by the time that they're 28, then they're going to end up marrying each other through a blood oath. And conveniently, they never speak about it again after that day. Then, after telling the story to George, she realizes that she might actually have feelings for him because in 3 weeks, she is going to be turning 28. We proceed to the next scene in which Michaels has left Jules a voicemail, and she thinks it's to propose marriage because that's what they have had planned, but instead, it's actually to tell her that he's already engaged to a 20-year-old girl named Kimmy, daughter of a billionaire. Now, this is billionaire in the 90s. She's understandably upset at this news, and you're probably thinking, well, she's the one that rejected him, so it's probably too late. And while she does have the right to change her mind, it's been a lot of years, he also has the right to move on. And I would be happy if he moved on, but then we would have no story. And this is where the first hint of villainry comes through in this movie. And during that phone call where they're discussing his engagement, it is very clearly illustrated as to why Michael is the true villain of this story. Now, I'm actually going to play a few clips from this phone call just so that you guys can see how this dynamic is playing out.
This unbelievably insane night that we spent in Tucson, like, I don't know, 1,000 years ago. And you probably won't remember this, but...
Are you kidding? I think about that night all the time.
You do?
Okay, editing me here. I didn't even notice the first 5 times that I watched this clip that they actually kiss the first time that we're introduced to Michael. Like, what?
Oh!
What is this? Clearly, he has not gotten over her rejection, which happened 10 years prior, you guys. It's been a decade. They were 18. Jules, in a state that I could only call shock and confusion, doesn't realize that this man is playing her like a violin, but instead, in true rom-com fashion, decides that it's time to break up the happy couple just so that Michael can realize how perfect they are together. When she arrives in Chicago, we meet my second favorite character, and that is Kimmy, Michael's fiance. Now, Kimmy is not without flaws, but is unfortunately made out to be the hateable female character, which makes me sad because she's portrayed as having just traditional female characteristics, and I would even go as far as to call her a girl's girl. I know some people would probably disagree with me, but I would think, or at least she is the beginning of the journey to becoming a girl's girl. Jules, on the other hand, completely different. Jules has a not like the other girls trope written all over her, but I think bringing them together creates a really nice dynamic where they can both learn from each other. Kimmy asks Jules to be her maid of honor because her best friend was unable to, and Jules sees this as the perfect way to get in between Michael and Kimmy, of course. So the role that Kimmy plays, and the reason why she's one of my favorite characters, is because her self-awareness is much greater than what it may seem at first glance. She lets Jules know that she's aware of how close Michael and her are, and also the fact that she used to think that she also wasn't like other girls and didn't have time for love and marriage until she met Michael and realized that those were valid things that she could want and that was okay. A lot of people throughout the movie underestimate her, even though she's much more intelligent than she lets on, even though she, yes, can be a bit ditzy at times. Jules always thinks that she has the upper hand on Kimmy, but I think Kimmy asked her to be her maid of honor not because she was dumb, as they led us to believe, but because she wanted to get to know Jules as best as she could so that she could see herself if Jules had ulterior motives, because by the way they speak about each other, it does not make it very clear that Jules and Michael are platonic, because they're not. He leads her on. Which is then perfectly exemplified by the next scene where Jules is trying on her maid of honor dress, and Michael comes into the dressing room when she's in her underwear, and she's obviously trying to cover up, and he becomes confused and says,
I've seen you a lot more naked than that.
Well, things are different now.
Yeah. You look really good without your clothes on.
What the heck? No fiance should ever be telling his ex, even though they call each other best friends, she's still his ex, that they look good in their underwear? What? So at this point in the movie, there can be two schools of thought. One would be where you could diminish her feelings and right to say no and be upset at her liking this boy back when he's now engaged to someone else. And if the context were different, then yes, I would say it's not a good look to start liking a person only because they've become unavailable. Or you could see things as they really are, where this guy is stringing Jules along as some sort of revenge fantasy for her breaking up with him when they were 18. Next comes a wonderful scene in the movie. I love this whole movie. All of the scenes are so purposeful. Ugh, it's great. Where Kimmy and Jules arrive at some sort of wedding festivity, which I think might be a bridal party, even though there's male guests there. I don't know. And on the elevator ride up to the event, Kimmy, who knows that Jules is afraid of small spaces because she has very closely listened to every detail of what Michael has told her, presses the emergency button on the elevator, which brings it to a halt. Here, she takes advantage of Jules' panic and expresses how she really feels about her and her fiancé's unconventional relationship. And this is where we really establish the fact that Kimmy is not some sort of dumb, rich blonde. I want you guys to really look at the lines from this scene.
After 2 weeks of cataloging all of his faults, I made a command decision that changed my life. I threw the list away. He's not a balance sheet. He's Michael, and loving him means loving all of him.
You get nervous in small confined spaces?
So it's sweet of you to want to be protective, but nothing ever could, ever did give me one moment's pause about this marriage.
You become hysterical in small confined
Except one. You. You'll always be there in his mind, this perfect creature that he loved for all those years.
Well, perfection can get wearing after a while.
I'm not kidding. I had to face up to all of my competitive drives, and believe me, I've got them.
No.
And after all, what am I going to be jealous of you for the rest of my life? Our paths will keep on crossing.
Of course.
He'll always talk about you.
It's only natural.
And the answer was so simple.
I was going to predict that.
You win.
I've missed a step.
He's got you on a pedestal. And me in his arms.
So the next two scenes are pretty standard. Jules takes Kimmy and Michael to karaoke, trying to sabotage Kimmy because Kimmy stated that she hates karaoke, and it was something that Jules and Michael actually loved. It ends up backfiring because once again, it shows how Kimmy isn't clueless. She takes control of the situation by exuding confidence and reminding Michael why he loves her so much. But actually, instead of Jules finding this more of a reason to hate her, she actually gives her the credit that she deserves and makes her start to realize that she is much more than she gave her credit for. Like a slight realization that she might have misjudged her. We now arrive at the peak of Michael's villainous. And you guys, we're only 30 minutes in. I actually took a 2-month break from writing the script because this scene made me so enraged. Kimmy mentions that she's going to drop out of college because of Michael's job, which involves him traveling across the country all year because he's a sports journalist, I think. Now, apparently, Michael is head over heels in love with this job, but it's low grade, pays poorly, and has him constantly traveling across the country, basically living in motels. Jules actually convinces Kimmy to do something that would actually be really good for her, but knowing Michael, she knows that this would send him over the edge. They meet up at dinner, and Kimmy tries to convince her fiancé to let her finish school and take a job with her dad for only 6 months so that she can do that. And I'm just gonna show you the rest of the scene because it actually fills me with rage.
I am being honest. What, all of a sudden I'm supposed to drop out of school? Forget my family, forget my career, forget about all the things I had planned for my life?
Forgive me for screwing up your plans. Just sure glad I'm hearing about this now before it's too late.
What is that
What am I
supposed to
supposed to do with my life, huh? I work in a low-paying, zero-respect job, which unfortunately I happen to love. And guess what, Kim? That's not me either.
Dave, that's the way you feel.
You're damn straight that's how I feel. Just come out and say it. My job's not good enough. I'm not good enough.
Michael, I never said that.
Yes, you did.
He is the villain. He is an entitled, selfish ass who uses weaponized incompetence against Kimmy because he knows that she actually really loves him. And because she's too young to realize it, she wants to prove her worth by making him choose her. Not because she's a pick-me, but because most likely all her life she has been told that she doesn't deserve the things that she has because she didn't earn them. They have been handed to her. So in order to prove to herself that she is worthy, she goes after an emotionally unavailable man, completely closed off to compromise towards anything that is good for her, and manipulates everyone in his life so that they always feel like they're in a competition to win his affection, because if she can get this ridiculously difficult man to choose her, then that means that she can do the hard things that she's always been told that she can't. I know Jules is disappointed for all the wrong reasons in the scene, but man, I would have had the exact same look on my face. Now, the scene directly after this one is quite important because it shows that the writers, at least to some extent, know that Michael is the villain of their story.
Michael and I are the same person. Self-absorbed and vaguely lovable. We deserve each other. I'm running out of time. I'm completely out of sneaky ideas. I have come to the end of my rapidly fraying rope. George, you have got to think of something.
There are a lot of things that happen. Again, this was still very early on in the movie. George comes to the rescue. She tries to pass him off as her fiance to make Michael jealous. First of all, I just want to say how fabulous George is. I don't think I truly appreciated how amazing of a character he is the first few times that I watched this when I was younger, but everyone should have a friend like George and be a friend like George. He makes the movie. He's hilarious.
Hideous room. Oh, God. Death by minibar. How glamorous.
He gives us the most perfect singing scene of all time in a movie. We continue to have more of this back and forth, disguised flirting.
I gotta tell you, when you told me that you were marrying George, I got this really strange,
You were jealous?
Save it, buddy. You're literally getting married to a different woman in T-1 day. So then the movie has them spend a whole day together just to really dig that knife in, trying to convince us that they actually have a chance of ending up together.
I've been thinking a lot the last couple of days. About us, I mean.
Have you? Well, there are a lot of memories to choose from, I guess.
it's more than that. I mean, it's kind of embarrassing to say it this way, but you've sort of been, the woman in my life. Kimmy says if you love someone, you say it. You say it right then, out loud. Otherwise, the moment just
Passes you by.
passes you by.
And I think this part specifically really solidifies the fact that he's trying to take emotional revenge by leading her on. He's basically admitting the fact that he is aware of what he's doing. He knows that Jules likes him now, but it's too late because the moment has passed. I think one of the reasons why Julia Roberts' character is hated so much in this movie is because they set her up for failure in every single way possible. Kimmy's family is a bit quirky, but also extremely lovely, opening, and welcoming towards Jules, which makes the scene where she pretends to be Kimmy's father to get Michael fired from his job so gut-wrenching. It's like you're either on the side of rooting for her because you dislike how perfect Kimmy and her life are, and so you want to see Jules steal the guy, or you're mad at Jules for not getting the picture and backing down. It's like with every attempt, she just goes lower and lower instead of being fully honest with Michael because, again, he has her in this perfect space of non-communication so that he can act as hot or cold as he wants to lure her in, and when she follows his lead, he can call her crazy. This Michael character is written so well. He's the perfect toxic mix of hard to read, which comes across as mysterious, emotionally unavailable, which comes across as having high standards, and a perfect amount of vulnerability right as you're about to catch on to what he's doing. So he reels you back in because it makes you feel special that he's sharing that with you. That's why it's so hard to tell during a first watch why he's the enemy. Every other character is so loud with their intentions that Michael quietly fades into the background, puppeteering the whole show. Now, though Jules did not mean for it to go that far, she actually does end up accidentally getting Michael fired, and he calls the wedding off. Now here we get a glimpse of a real genuine friendship between them that isn't coated with this weird sexual tension.
I am crazy. To fall for someone I hardly knew. I'm so glad you're here.
It represents why she's considered him to be her best friend for so long. Like, they really know each other well. That is until the writers, I guess, couldn't help themselves and they give us this.
You tried it on and it won't come off.
What is this? What is this? What is this? I know the wedding is off at this point in the movie, but bro didn't even wait 2 minutes to do whatever the heck that was to his supposed completely platonic best friend. And so, of course, when Jules is given the last chance to do the right thing, what does she do? The scene is hard to watch and heartbreaking for everyone except for Michael. Was she being led on by her best friend this entire time? Yes. Was her kissing a man who was back on to get married that day justified? No, but this is the climax of the movie, so something had to happen. But of course, George is here to save the day, and we have this scene where he tells Jules, I think, what all of the audience has been thinking this entire time.
I mean, was there anything on the other side of that kiss that leads you to believe that this chase will end happily?
That's beside the point. We were interrupted.
Who interrupted you?
Kimmy, she ruined everything. And Michael started chasing her before he could answer me.
Michael's chasing Kimmy.
Yes.
You're chasing Michael.
Yes.
Who's chasing you? Nobody. Get it?
There's your answer, Kimmy.
No.
Yes! Jules, you are not the one!
Now, for God's sake. The wedding is at 6 p.m.
You have a small but distinct window of opportunity to do the right thing.
And she does. She comes clean about the email, admits that she was trying to sabotage their relationship, and realizes how unkind of a person she's been to everyone. Michael, of course being the villain of the story, says this line.
On the other hand, thank you for loving me that much. That way. It's pretty flattering.
And ends up hitting the last nail in the coffin. The biggest point that I want people to take away from this video is the idea of calling or thinking that women are crazy because Jules thought that Michael liked her back. He could lead her on all he wanted, especially basically cheating on his fiance multiple times. And yet, because this movie was made in the 90s, it does have some subtle, or maybe not so subtle, suggestions that her emotions were the ones that were out of control.
You kissed him! At my parents' house! On my wedding day!
Tramp.
Because she unprovoked, was obsessed with him and now had to pay the consequences of putting him in the friend zone. We all know that the friend zone isn't real because instead of handling the rejection, they project the responsibility onto the woman. If he were really her best friend, he wouldn't have taken it to heart instead of planning this entire huge secret plot for revenge and making her think that she was going crazy for thinking that she actually had a chance. And as we saw, he makes this clear on multiple occasions throughout the entire movie. So why is Jules not the co-villain, if you will, of the story? Well, let's go back to that one scene.
Michael and I are the same person. Self-absorbed and vaguely lovable. We deserve each other.
The movie's whole point is for her to realize that she and Michael are not the same. If they were, then yes, maybe she would be right that they would be perfect for each other. But they are not. That's the plot of the movie. She realizes that she deserves much more than Michael. Her and Kimmy both. She is lovable. She isn't self-absorbed. She dodged a bullet. There is an amazing scene that perfectly encapsulates her character arc.
Jules, do you really love him? Or was this just about winning? Seriously?
In the beginning, it was mostly this prior claim he belonged to me.
Because she's not afraid of losing him. She's afraid of losing the prospect she had for her future self. She is losing the security that he was always going to be a backup for her if she needed him. She is losing that image of her younger self that could have it all and still have that guy waiting for her if she needed it. This story isn't about Jules's relationship with Michael. It's the relationship that she has with herself and a little bit of the relationship she has with other women. But that's still informed by the relationship she has with herself. Now, I said that Kimmy doesn't really give pick-me energy in that sense, but I would describe Jules as a pick-me at the beginning of the story.
You hate weddings, you never go. You're not up for anything conventional or anything that's assumed to be a female priority, including marriage, or romance, or even
Love.
And being a pick-me isn't the worst thing in the world. She fits the description, and most of us are pick-me's at one point or another in our lives. This just happens to be her journey towards discovering why she was exhibiting those behaviors and why they no longer served her.
She's annoyingly perfect, is it? There's nothing annoying about her perfection. It is vulnerable and endearing. And that is annoying as shit.
Ah, you like it.
I didn't have to hate her, I'd adore her.
And so finally, we reached one of the most beloved scenes in this entire movie.
You think, what the hell? Life goes on. Maybe there won't be marriage. Maybe there won't be sex. But by God, there'll be dancing.
As I said in the beginning, I do love this movie. And though some scenes do make me incredibly angry, I like it not because it's exaggerated or made for shock value, but because the characters are so well written and true to life that I can see the realness in their emotions and actions. Not to mention, the performances by these actors are some of my all-time favorites. Couldn't have gotten a better cast, and I encourage you to watch it and come up with your own conclusions. Yes, the characters sometimes do take questionable actions, but if everyone acted morally perfect, then it wouldn't be entertaining. The character growth of everyone except for the villain best friend is what makes it worth it. I could go for hours breaking down this movie, from the smoking scene in the hallway and how it's a way to bring back compassion to Jules and how significant the cigarette as a prop is, to other small details like the fact that the wedding ring is silver and Kimmy is always shown wearing gold and pearls, and the one that wears silver exclusively is Jules until the wedding scene, where it could represent that they are now equals or they both deserve better than Michael, and so on. I already like this movie, but taking the time to really break it down and notice all of those small details is what made me love it. So let me know what you guys think, what your opinions are, whether you agree or disagree. I, like I said, hold a very strong opinion on this, and Michael is just, he's a no-go. Kimmy, you deserve better. Thank you so much for watching. I'm gonna hopefully start uploading so many more videos onto this channel, and don't forget to check out my podcast. If you liked this video, then this video has nothing on how amazing the content over on the podcast is. So don't forget to check that out. Thank you so much for watching. I think I already said that, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.